I never thought I'd find myself here, lost in a sea of emotions I never expected to feel, especially not when I had everything I thought I ever needed. My name is Samantha Blake. I'm 34, married to a man I've loved for nearly a decade, and I work as a senior marketing executive for a top-tier firm in New York City. To the world, I had it all: a loving husband, a successful career, and the kind of life that other women envied. But as the years went on, something started to feel empty. The spark in my marriage to Greg, my husband, had started to dim. I love him, I really do, but our connection had grown predictable, routine, even. We fell into a rhythm that no longer sparked joy, leaving me yearning for something more, something exciting. I had no idea how badly I was about to crave that thrill. My story begins at the office. Jason Cole, my boss, had been an enigma to me. He was everything I admired: intelligent, driven, confident, and impossibly handsome. At 40, he had this magnetic presence, one that made everyone in the room turn their heads when he spoke. When he walked into the office, it felt like the world slowed down. And despite his authority, Jason had a way of making everyone feel important, including me. It started innocently enough. Jason was my mentor, always encouraging me to push further in my career. I looked up to him for guidance, and as a result, I put more effort into my work than ever before. He noticed. He always noticed. It was like he had this uncanny ability to see exactly what I needed, to make me feel like I mattered. But then something shifted. It wasn't just admiration anymore, it was something deeper, more intoxicating. I found myself looking forward to our one-on-one meetings, feeling a flutter in my chest when his eyes locked with mine. His gaze lingered a little too long, and his words were always carefully measured, but I began to hear something else beneath them. Was it interest? Or maybe even desire? One afternoon, we went out for lunch after a particularly stressful morning. The conversation flowed easily, and I found myself laughing at things that weren't even that funny. Jason had a way of making me feel at ease, and I let my guard down. Our eyes met across the table, and I saw it, a spark. Something neither of us had been able to hide. For a moment, I wondered if he felt the same way about me as I felt about him. When we returned to the office, it was as if nothing had happened. But that night, my mind was racing. I couldn't shake the feeling of his eyes on me, the way he made me feel special. It was like nothing I had ever experienced with Greg. My husband and I had grown comfortable with each other over the years, but this was different. And I knew it. A few days later, Jason invited me to stay late at the office. He said we needed to finish some project updates together. The place was quiet, almost empty, except for the two of us. Jason offered me a glass of wine as we sat in his office, the lights dimmed just enough to create an intimate atmosphere. We talked about work, but then the conversation shifted to more personal matters. Jason's voice lowered, and for the first time, I noticed how close we were sitting. "You're really good at what you do, Samantha," he said softly, his hand brushing against mine as he passed me my glass. I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. As we talked about everything and nothing, the tension between us grew. It was electric, charged with something unspoken. Jason's hand brushed mine again, but this time it lingered. I could feel his breath on my skin as he leaned in closer. I froze, unsure of what to do. But in that moment, I couldn't stop myself. My heart was racing, and before I knew it, his lips were on mine. The kiss was everything I had been craving, everything I hadn't realized I needed. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, intense, and it felt like everything was falling into place. My guilt surged immediately, but I didn't pull away. I didn't know if I could. I never thought I would betray Greg, but I had. And now, there was no going back. This was just the beginning. A kiss, a moment of weakness, and I knew my life was about to change forever. After the kiss, everything changed, yet nothing did. The days that followed felt like an endless tangle of emotions: guilt, excitement, fear, and desire. The line I had crossed so easily now felt like a heavy chain around my neck, dragging me down with every passing moment. I couldn't stop thinking about that kiss, the way his lips had tasted, the heat of his touch, the way my body had responded despite every rational part of me screaming to stop. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. Jason and I continued our professional lives, but every interaction between us was charged with a tension that neither of us dared to acknowledge aloud. At work, we were the picture of professionalism. He remained my boss, and I remained his employee, but whenever our eyes met across the room, or when we exchanged casual words in the hallway, I felt the spark that had ignited that night still smoldering between us. I tried to avoid being alone with him as much as possible, but it was impossible. Jason was my superior, and his mentorship was something I couldn't afford to lose. He pushed me, challenged me, and made me feel valued in a way I hadn't felt in years. Greg was wonderful, he was loving, supportive, and dedicated, but somehow, he no longer saw me the way Jason did. With Jason, I felt alive in a way I had forgotten was possible. One evening, I found myself back in Jason's office after another grueling day at work. The office was quiet, the city lights twinkling outside, casting a soft glow through the windows. Jason was reviewing some files when I knocked softly, entering with a file of my own. "You're still here?" I asked, a playful smile tugging at my lips, despite the anxiety gnawing in my stomach. "Yeah, just finishing up." "You're welcome to join me," he said, his voice smooth, casual, like we were old friends. His eyes lingered on me for a moment longer than necessary, and I could feel the familiar heat rise in my chest. I sat across from him, pulling my chair closer. We spoke about work at first, but I could feel that familiar pull again, the way my heart raced when he looked at me, the way my body seemed to betray me, wanting more than just conversation. "You've been doing great work lately," he said, leaning forward slightly. "You're one of the best we've got, Samantha. But I think you're holding yourself back. You've got more potential than you realize." I swallowed, trying to steady my breath. "Thanks, Jason. That means a lot." He smiled, his gaze intense. "I mean it. You've got it. You just have to stop second-guessing yourself." His voice lowered, and I could feel the space between us growing smaller. There was no more pretending. We both knew what this was. There was something real here, something undeniable, something that had nothing to do with work anymore. Then he leaned in, just slightly, and for a moment, I thought he might kiss me again. I wanted him to. My heart was pounding in my ears, and I felt like I might burst if I didn't do something, anything, to close the distance between us. But I didn't. I couldn't. I should go," I said, my voice shaking. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor, and I walked toward the door, desperate to escape the heat that seemed to fill the room. Jason didn't try to stop me, but his eyes followed me as I left. I didn't look back. The following days were a blur. I couldn't focus on anything. Work became a distant thought, and all I could think about was Jason. Our brief interactions at the office, the way he had looked at me, the way he made me feel, it consumed my every waking moment. I couldn't understand why I was letting it get to me like this. I had a husband, a life I had built, and yet here I was, daydreaming about my boss. Greg noticed the change in me. He had always been perceptive, and I couldn't hide the fact that something was off. He asked me about my day more than usual, tried to spend more time with me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was drifting away from him, slipping into a place I couldn't return from. One night, after a long, silent dinner, Greg turned to me. "Samantha, are you okay? You've been distant lately. Is it work?" I felt the weight of his question, but I couldn't answer him. How could I? How could I explain that I was drowning in feelings I couldn't control, that my emotions were tangled up with someone else, someone I shouldn't even be thinking about? I couldn't risk hurting him, not when he had been so kind, so understanding, and so unaware of the storm brewing inside me. "I'm just tired," I lied, forcing a smile. "It's been a tough week." He nodded, though I could tell he didn't fully believe me. "Well, if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here." I swallowed hard, nodding. "Thanks, Greg. The weeks dragged on, and the tension between Jason and me grew more unbearable. We shared furtive glances during meetings, exchanged quick words in the hallway, and every time we passed each other in the office, it felt like sparks were flying. But then one fateful night, the decision was made for me. It was after hours again, and I was sitting at my desk, trying to finish up some work. My phone buzzed. A message from Jason: "I need to talk. Can you meet me in my office?" I hesitated, the words flashing in front of me. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to pretend nothing had ever happened. But another part of me, the part that had been yearning for something more, couldn't resist. When I arrived at his office, Jason was standing by the window, his back to me. The city lights flickered below us, and for a moment, I thought I might turn around and walk away. But then he spoke. "Samantha, I can't stop thinking about you." I froze, the words hanging in the air like a confession. "I know this is wrong, and I know we're playing with fire. But I can't help it. I want you, and I think you want me too." I stood there, my heart pounding in my chest, unsure of what to do. Everything in me screamed to walk away, to stop this before it went any further, but the other part of me, the part that had been yearning for something real, pushed me forward. Before I could say anything, Jason closed the distance between us, his hand gently cupping my cheek as he leaned in. And this time I didn't pull away. The affair had begun. And I had no idea where it would lead. Thank you to all of you who have listened to my story so far. Your likes, your comments, and sharing to friends and family, they give me the courage to keep going, to be honest about my experiences, no matter how difficult they may be to share.